Welcome everybody to our afternoon session about SEMC programs in 2022 and 2023 and what to expect. Today we're going to be talking about the Jekyll Island Management Institute, which is a long-running program that SEMC has been offering for 20 years. Actually, 2020 celebrated the 20th year of the Jekyll Island Management Institute. And then we also have a new program. It's the SEMC Leadership Institute. And this was launched again in 2020, was meant to be launched as an in-person program, but we started it out virtually, just given the strangeness of the last year. But my name is Zinnia Willits. I'm the Executive Director of the Southeastern Museums Conference, and we are pleased to be here today. I have panelists representing both the Jekyll Island Management Institute and the Leadership Institute, both from a faculty perspective and a participant, and then alumni perspective. So we hope that you ask questions of us. We're just going to go over kind of the history of these programs and the purpose, the curriculum, what they were designed to do, hear from some of the alums and the past participants, and then hopefully get everyone on the call excited about the future of both of these programs. And this year in 2021, we're on pause really for both of the programs. We had to put a lot of effort into this virtual hybrid conference that we're doing right now in Chattanooga and online. And so we've really taken this last year to evaluate our programs and then get ready to relaunch them in 2022 for the Leadership Institute, and then in 2023 for the Jekyll Island Management Institute. So it's really an information session to let you know what these programs are about, what you can expect, and then think about maybe participating. All right, so I'm going to go on to the next slide here. So the first program we're going to talk about is the Jekyll Island Management Institute, and I'm going to turn it over to George Bassey, who is the director of the Lauren Rogers Museum of Art in Laurel, Mississippi, and I will let you introduce yourself, George.
Thanks, Zinnia. Glad to be here and glad to have everybody participating in this today. As Zinnia said, I'm with the Lauren Rogers Museum of Art in Laurel, Mississippi, and had the fortune of being on faculty at Jimmy for about 15 years now. The sessions that I have taught and teach each year, one is on board development and the other is on strategic planning. They always give me the two most boring ones, but I always enjoy not only meeting the groups, but also kind of watching them gel together. History-wise, as most of you know, and Zinnia has mentioned, Jimmy started 20 years ago and really was kind of an outgrowth of a program. I think it was maybe called Jumpstart, I think was the name of it. That was really a kind of a way to kind of come in and kind of learn a little bit about everything. A lot of that was geared toward registrars and curators, possibly, mostly historic sites. And so after we had visited Jekyll Island for SEMC in the 90s, everyone kind of started thinking about how can we spend a week somewhere. So that's kind of how Jimmy was born. And really the curriculum has been, it's about 8 days. It's very, it is immersive. I mean, there are some breaks here and there, but always 2 to 3 long sessions a day that really cover the gamut of really. The goal probably is to see if you ever want to be museum director one day. It covers everything that you hope they're going to tackle as a museum director. So it does really review, and it kind of takes you through that. So usually it's everything from fundraising to collections care to education to exhibitions, and as I mentioned, strategic planning, board development. There's a communication aspect where you kind of learn your personality profile and understand how to work with people, team building. And I think that's always been pretty important to do. And so that curriculum in the past is what's being evaluated and looking at. As all of you know, we've been very fortunate through the years. Pete LaPaglia had the vision for this along with Martha Battle Jackson and Pam Meister early on. And God bless Pete, he put his heart and soul into it. And after he passed away, Martha really took it on, and along with John Hunter, have put a lot of time into it as they've kind of retired away and have stepped back from Jimmy. This reevaluation and looking at how it's going to be structured coming forward is kind of where we are now. So hopefully the 2023 curriculum and that year will do.
Yeah, we're not there yet. Keep going, George.
All right. And so if I'm talking too much, just start the video.
No, you're fine. I have itchy fingers on this.
So anyway, so that's kind of how we've done it in the past. And, you know, the one thing about it, and I think for those of us that have been here in Chattanooga this week, you really learn the value of what it's like to finally be back around people and what you kind of, what you see and what you get to experience away from a session. And that's kind of what I think the beauty of Jimmy does, that alumni bond that's formed from these classes is really special. And you know, you're not only there learning together, but there's a lot of time, you know, before and after sessions and in the evenings where that part really creates a network and people you can call on, whether it's faculty members that teach, but also just people in your class that have been there and kind of have seen some things. And it's good to commiserate and to celebrate all the time with people that you kind of have a kindred spirit with. And so I think the alumni part of it is what it really has been special. And so many of the people that are encouraged to participate and to apply to go through Jimmy are really probably pushed by folks that have gone through the program. And I think that part of it is really strong. I will say, and from the beginning, and it's evolved a lot, but you know, Jimmy's purpose early on was probably more for smaller and mid-sized museums. It really wasn't for big, large institutions that kind of had, you know, huge budgets and kind of had people that knew everything. And so it was looking at those people that were maybe new directors at a small institution, or maybe someone looking to be a director, maybe from a mid-sized museum that wanted to learn more about all the different areas and aspects of running a museum. And so I think that part of it has kind of ebbed and flowed through the years. There's been a really good evaluation process, and I know Zenny will probably talk more about that too, of how we've looked at it. And I know I've participated in several Zoom calls throughout this past year to look at what needs to change, what needs to stay. And so I hope that this next chapter is as exciting as we hope it's going to be.
Thanks, George. And we are keeping, and in just a minute, I'm going to ask Heather Marie Wiles, who is an alum of the program, to talk a little bit just about her experience with Jimmy, and then specifically about the alumni, the networking that happens, and George set it up for that very well. But I think we started out, this is an in-person program. It is meant to be, it's 5 days, 7 days? No.
It's about 8 days.
It's 8 days. I'm sorry, I'm getting it all. But we are going to continue to run it on Jekyll Island. It's Jekyll Island, Georgia. And so it is a tuition program. There are opportunities for scholarships, and there will continue to be opportunities for scholarships. But in the past, I believe the tuition was $750, and that basically includes your program materials and all of the instruction that you're getting. Lodging was additional, but there were some receptions and some meals built into it as well. So, you know, it's interesting to me in this world of being able to add in virtual components to in-person programs, how that may continue to strengthen and maybe make this type of program more accessible. So the format may change just a little bit. It may be a shorter in-person experience, but then also have some virtual opportunities, or not, or maybe it's just an opportunity to zoom in, you know, additional speakers to the session. So we're really taking a hard look, I think, as everybody is, over this last year, this current year, at our programming and thinking about what we take into the future with us. So Heather Marie, how about, let's hear from you about Jimmy.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be with you all virtually. Some things that I will also add to the mix that maybe George didn't think about. I want to point out that we have 2 endowments to help fund Jimmy. One, we have the Pete LaPaglia Endowment, which is it's for scholarships, help cover tuition. And then the other one is that we formed last year is the Martha Battle Jackson Fund, which helps with operational expenses. And part of the evaluation process that we've been going through is really evaluating the past several years, how much it costs to run Jimmy, and to try to get an idea of what does the Jimmy program cost to run, what kind of revenue does it generate as well, so it can be self-sustaining. And we're really looking at the long-term sustainability and the funding of this program, and that's very important to SEMC for us to ensure that we can continue the longevity of this program for the future. I am a 2010 graduate of Jimmy, and it has been really important to me in my career. It's helped me get more jobs, and it's helped me become more involved with my state association that I eventually became president of, and now I'm past president. And I think it also helped me become president of SEMC. And my involvement in SEMC, I am still in connection with probably half of my class, and the faculty that I had when I went through Jimmy continue to be mentors to me in my career to this day. I was just getting advice from George yesterday on my career and some things. So that's something that continues to be a source of joy and inspiration, and the network that you get from Jimmy continues long after you've gone through the class. And also a part of the evaluation too is we are asking ourselves, how do we continue that connection with alumni after Jimmy? So we do still have the Jimmy Facebook group. Stephanie Green has stepped up, and she is handling, Martha used to take job announcements that Jimmy alumni had, and she would email them to all of us. Stephanie Green has currently stepped up and is doing that for us. But I think that one of the things that SEMC is going to look for both the Leadership Institute and for Jimmy is some long-term communication solutions for the graduates of both of these programs, and how can they continue to easily communicate with each other after these experiences are over. So that is on our list to tackle as well. I'm trying to think what else I might have forgotten. I also want to say a lot of the state associations have stepped up, and also for Jimmy have established scholarships, so that if somebody from their state has been accepted to the Jimmy program, they can get scholarship funds that way as well. I think there's somewhere between 5 and 9 of the state associations who have done that in the past. So I'm really hoping that those associations will continue to do that, and maybe they'll also consider to do that for our Leadership Institute as well. And because these programs make a huge impact on the states where these people are coming from. Personally, in Arkansas, we've had 26 graduates from the Jimmy program, which it's a 20-year program, and we've had 26 graduates go through. The current Arkansas Museum Association board has 5 graduates on it, and that's a 13-person board. The SEMC council has a number of Jimmy graduates on it as well. So Jimmy makes a huge impact in our field, city, state, regional wide, and I'm very proud that SEMC is going to be continuing this program, and that we're also started the Leadership Institute, which I think is going to have just as much an impact as well. So I'm excited about that too.
Thanks, Heather Marie. Yeah, I think I'm going to talk just a little bit about the evaluation process and where we are with that. But another real true benefit of this program are the faculty that the cohort is exposed to each year. As you can see from the picture, the cohort is usually around 16. And so you really do get to know these people and become their network. But George, how many years are you an instructor for Jimmy?
It's been about 15 years. So
yeah. So there is depth of experience among the faculty. New faculty were rotated in, here and there, but there's consistency, and I think that was a real positive to it as well. So the last Jimmy class was 2020, and we celebrated the 20th year of a very successful program. Also in that year, I think we don't need to rehash 2020, but
Jimmy was the last good thing that happened in 2020.
It's a good way to put it. But a couple other things happened just in the life cycle of SEMC. One, Martha Battle Jackson retired after 20 years of being the administrator of that program. So that was already going to sort of pause and think about what do we do after, in a change in leadership there. And then also Susan Perry, who was the previous executive director of SEMC, retired. So I came into the job, but that there was a lot of newness to that. And then of course the pandemic hit, and it really just kind of canceled 2020 programs that were in person. So you put together all of those moving parts, and the decision was made to put Jimmy on pause. However, we also had always been moving towards all programs as a healthy exercise after a certain amount of time to really do an in-depth evaluation of the program. And each year the cohort would do their own evaluation of their experience, and all of that was very beneficial. But we took this moment, this sort of forced opportunity to decide that this was now the time that we were going to look at the Jekyll Island Management Institute and decide how it moves into the future and what the next successful 20 years are going to look like. So we move to the next slide here. I'm not going to hit play on that just yet, but in an evaluation process, we've been working with Allison Leitner, who is an evaluator. She's with Smithsonian Enterprises. She's actually, I think there's actually another program happening right now where she's speaking about the evaluation work that she's done with the interpretation workshop that the National Museum of African American History and Culture has run in partnership with SEMC for many years. So her experience with these kinds of programs was really beneficial. So Allison came on board and worked through a process of how we were going to do this, because right now we're not really doing in-person programs, or we weren't last year, so we had the time to think about it. So it started out with surveys. We created surveys of that we sent out to all of the Jimmy alumni, and there's over 300 of them over the past 20 years. There was a different survey that went out to the faculty, and then there was an additional one that was sent to SEMC leadership, to our board. And the point behind all of this was to find out what people thought about the value of this program, what perhaps could be some interesting changes that could happen in the future, but we really did ask for the feedback. And so getting it was very beneficial to all of the stakeholders that have been involved in Jimmy over the last 20 years. And it was yet another way to kind of bring everybody together into this process. The next step in that evaluation was we put together a group of, I think there was 10 of us. Right. It was a mixture of Jimmy alums and one or two of the faculty from previous Jimmy sessions, and a couple of the SEMC council members. And then we also had those who weren't involved with Jimmy at all. We had someone in the group who was representing emerging museum professionals. Someone from SEMC member who was really representing the mid-career museum professionals. So this working group then came together to talk through the previous curriculum. And it was a 3-hour session. We had a few breaks, but it was mostly, it was really a good conversation about the future. What direction is the museum field moving? What are the topics that are of focus in a management institute like this? And it was never really about completely changing the program, but just adjusting it and tweaking it some to move us into the future based on the way that the field is evolving. So what has come out of that thus far, and I'm about to hit play on this little video, is this idea of the Jekyll Island Management Institute, and Allison sort of titled it A Tour Through the Museum. So I'm going to just listen to it, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it in the moment. But this is all the culmination of the evaluation process, and we're not at the end quite yet, but this is where we are right now.
The Jekyll Island Management Institute is an immersive experience for museum professionals who seek to broaden their understanding of museum operations in order to advance to management or leadership roles in the museum field. During this 8-day institute, participants will learn current best practices of visitor-facing and behind-the-scenes work in museums, with a focus on incorporating best practices in diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and the use of technology. Participants will have the opportunity to hear from current experts across the museum field and work collaboratively with peers to create solutions to real-world issues. The Institute will be structured as a tour of the museum. Sessions will use case studies to allow students to identify and discuss best practices in a range of visitor-facing and behind-the-scenes roles in a museum. Rather than taking a deep dive into any particular role, participants will receive an overview and come away with a better understanding of how the roles in a museum work together to form an institution. Participants will have the opportunity to learn not only from current experts in the field, but also from each other during sessions covering participants' areas of expertise. By the end of the Institute, participants will have a well-rounded perspective on how museums can best operate in today's world, as well as a strong network of dedicated museum professionals to call on as they advance in their careers. This institute is designed for participants who are museum professionals who seek professional development to fill knowledge gaps in museum operations that are required for management level and leadership positions. This updated design takes the strengths of the 20-year-old Jekyll Island Management Institute as identified by Jimmy alumni, faculty, and stakeholders, and adds a focus on current best practices, including DEAI and the use of technology in museums.
Okay. So that's where we are right now with the Jekyll Island Management Institute. And if there's alums who are on the call, you can see that a lot of the topics it's very similar to the way that the curriculum has always been. It's just, we've just added a few things. And one of the things that is really important is instead of having a separate session perhaps or a day to talk about diversity, accessibility, equity, and inclusion, that premise is built into all of these other topics. So the DEAI aspect of collections management, of communications, of development, of even operations or exhibitions, it's all going to be part of the experience instead of sort of pulled out as separate. So that is something that came out of the evaluation as important. Oh, okay. So where are we now? So we're almost at the end of 2021. We need 2022 to finish a few pieces of this puzzle. And that, as Heather Marie mentioned, is more about the business model of the Jekyll Island Management Institute. We need to do some work as a council to tie that up. We will re-engage faculty and be adding new faculty to bring that group together. But the Jekyll Island Management Institute is set to run in January of 2023. I've got the hotel contract. It's there. I don't have the dates. I feel like it's January 15th through something, but as soon as that information is available, the application process usually opens the summer before, so that people can begin thinking through budgets and timing, and we can work on the scholarship opportunities. So those of you who are interested, you will begin to see updates as we move towards launching this registration opening for Jimmy 2023. But it is happening. It is, there was this pause in it, but ultimately the timing was right to do this. And we're all very excited about Jimmy 2023 and beyond, the next 20 years. All the hard work that has gone into it from the past will lay the foundation for what we rebuild into the future. So that's where we are. If there's any final thoughts, Heather Marie or George?
The Jekyll Island Management.
Sorry.
Do we want to take questions on Jimmy now, or do we want to wait until the very end and take questions on either program?
I think we can wait till the end.
Okay.
And see what people might have to say.
No worries.
So thank you both for your input in that and for your involvement. It takes a village to run all of these programs, but these are special programs. SEMC in the past year, we have added in virtual offerings, we've added in monthly happy hours, all kinds of things, but these still continue to be sort of flagship offerings, and we're very proud of them. And I know that other regions look to these programs as models. And I actually had somebody, it's almost like they wanted to franchise it. I was like, I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but I like that you like what we're doing. So the next program I want
that could be our business model.
Well, it's
kind of pay to franchise it.
It was kind of an interesting idea. Yeah, I mean, and again, it's called the Jekyll Island Management Institute because that's where it has always been based, and that is now the name that is part of it. So we're gonna stay on Jekyll Island for at least the foreseeable future and continue. It's a beautiful place to spend 8 days, in addition to all of the lovely the professional training that you'll get. You'll also get the beach and the live oaks and all of that, Spanish moss. So the next program that I wanted to talk about is our Leadership Institute. This is a new program that has been in development for the last, I don't know, 3 years perhaps. Susan Perry was very instrumental in launching this and getting it to where it was, and I'm very thankful for that because this is another strong one for us, and I'm excited about the future of it. I'm going to turn it over in just a minute to Marcia Shemel, who is one of the Leadership Institute instructors and was also part of the planning process. I was, at the time that we were developing the Leadership Institute, I was on council, so I was aware, we were aware of it as a program in development, but I wasn't really kind of in the weeds with how everything that was being done. So I learned a lot. I'm very thankful to have the longer lens of the faculty, and then of course with Susan, to be able to get us to this point. This program was supposed to launch in April of 2020. It's a different model than Jimmy. It's a shorter time period. It was developed as a 5-day experience. And we'll talk just a little bit about the different type of focus on it. But it was meant to launch in April of 2020. And of course we couldn't do that because that was the beginning of the pandemic. And so we moved it down the road to August, and then it became very clear that we just weren't going to be doing any in-person programs for SEMC in 2020. But we were to the point though where we had a cohort, we had gone through the application process, we had a site venue, the Duke Mansion in Charlotte, North Carolina, but the general circumstances of the world just didn't allow us to do it. So we launched it as a virtual program in November of 2020, which with great success. And so today on this call, we've got a couple of the alumni of the program, as well as Marcia. And Marcia, are you good with
Yeah.
audio?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you
Good.
great.
I can hear and see. This is great.
Okay.
Thank you, Zinnia. And I have to tell you, it's been an amazing privilege to be associated with this program and the members of the first cohort and Zinnia. Zinnia's request to me to think about the history of the program led me to my voluminous file. And the first thing I could find chronologically was a June 2017 letter from Susan Perry talking about complementing Jimmy and its management training with, this is a quote, a senior level learning experience for current and future museum directors and senior management with over 5 years experience in the field. As the project evolved, by the end of 2017, Susan had done a survey of Jimmy participants and SEMC members and had gotten a strong, enthusiastic response from the more than 100 respondents who liked the idea of, very important for them was affordability, not a long length of the program. I think it went from sort of 4 to 5 days as people were thinking about it. And the topics that the survey respondents wanted to prioritize were strategic thinking, external relationship building, project management, capital fundraising, and how to be a catalyst for change. So I think those help shape the program as it has evolved since the end of 2017. By May of 2019, working with Allison Leitner, who's an instructional designer who you already heard from via the video on the Jimmy evaluation, Susan and Allison had developed a kind of mind map with some very detailed learning objectives that kind of, that are right here on this slide, in terms of people's personal strengths, how to assess those strengths within an organization, and how to assess them as outside of the organization. And then finally, what are some very practical ways to leverage the potential of your leadership skills to move your institution forward? And our shorthand for all of these objectives were looking inside to understand yourself, looking around to understand your environment, and looking ahead to help move your institution forward. So there were a series of meetings in 2019, and as Zinnia has explained, and as all of you experienced, 2020 happened. And when 2020 happened, we went through not only the shutdowns that we all experienced, but the transition from Susan to Zinnia and the leadership role, and to start to think about recasting this program as a virtual program, since we knew we weren't going to be able to meet in person. So on the screen, you see the major themes of the program as we've evolved them. It's been a great group of people to work with. Our faculty are, I think we all get along, which has been good, and we've all been very flexible. So since this was the first try out of the box, out of the gate rather, we would constantly revise and hone our presentations in the virtual format, which turned out to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zinnia, is it 3 hours a day? Was it 3 hours a day? I know Marcia and Taffany will remember this, for 2 weeks.
Yeah, 10 to 1 every day.
10 to 1 every day. And at the end of that session, the faculty would all convene around 4:30 that same day and talk about what went right, what we need to capitalize on, what we kind of needed to review for the next day. So those are the themes, starting with knowing yourself to thinking about cultures. And just as Zinnia described around Jimmy, I think one of the things that evolved with the Leadership Institute was to weave diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and equity throughout the full curriculum in every single session as we explored these issues around leadership. Maybe I should stop there, Zinnia, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm eager to hear from our alums.
Yeah, and sorry, I couldn't even remember what slides I put in here. So these were these are our 3 faculty. By the way, Marcia, I just got confirmation from Laura that she's in for.
See?
So the band. So these are our faculty for the Leadership Institute. We have Marcia, obviously, and Laura Morgan Roberts and Robert Bull, and it really was a quite amazing experience. I guess I was sort of I was by default part of the cohort because I was there with them as the administrator. But it was a transformational experience to spend that time together, to be talking with these individuals about these topics, especially during a time of great change. This program was developed in partnership, actually, with the Association of African American Museums.
Right.
And so there was very good connection points there. Again, this was designed as an in-person program, and it will go back to being an in-person program, which I'll talk a little bit more about later in 2022, but it's 5 days. The tuition was $1,500 for SEMC members. And I know that is, it's a kind of a heavy lift at points, but the idea being that this program, I'm sure many on the call have heard of other leadership programs, the Getty Institute, and some of the other bigger names out there. I mean, this was a fraction of the cost of what those programs were. So it was designed to be affordable, and I know it might not sound completely affordable, but we are continuing to look at ways to add scholarship opportunities to this program and develop additional partnerships for sponsorship so that we can continue to make it accessible. So those are sort of the nuts and bolts of all of that. But I brought, yes.
I guess, and maybe you'll be mentioning this, but the other component of this, like as with Jimmy, was a strong evaluation component that we worked with Jekyll on.
Right, and I will just mention that now because it's the way that this program was designed. It's a really nice model for all SEMC programs moving into the future. And it was designed with evaluation as a critical component. So some of the alumni who you're about to hear from this first class, we worked with an evaluator named Jeff Hayward, and he was part of the process, but then he followed up with the cohort at, I believe, 3 months and then 6 months to assess what the impact was. What was the impact of this 2-week experience on their current positions, on their personal lives, whatever. So we have all of that feedback, and we also have feedback from the cohort in terms of how to make the program stronger going forward. And it was a very beneficial process. We actually just on Sunday, as a kind of final tie-up of this first class, we did a workshop with the cohort here in Chattanooga. Well, it was hybrid, like everything else here right now. But we were all together again. Some of us were in the room and some of us were on Zoom, but it was a really interesting discussion to talk about impact of what this program can do. So that being said, you're looking at this is the virtual class of 2020 Leadership Institute, and we have Marcy Bruffel and Taffany English, who were part of that cohort. And so Marcy and Taffany, I don't know who wants to go first, but I think my first question, or just ask you to give some general comments on your Leadership Institute experience.
I can't tell if Daphne's telling me to go first or like motioning. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Marcy Breffel. I am the education manager at Oakland Cemetery in Atlanta. And yeah, I guess the member of the cohort for the Virtual Leadership Institute. I've been at my job over 6 years now, and I go to SEMC. I go to the Georgia Association of Museums, annual conference, but was really looking for more professional development, and especially like, how do I know I can lead naturally, but because I head up my own department, but how can I improve my skills to be able to lead others? And that's essentially what brought me to the Leadership Institute. How it was structured was fantastic. Marcia, Rob, Laura were really great instructors. And this whole idea of, looking inside, looking around, and looking ahead, that framework made this kind of like 2-week crash course where we were on Zoom every day for 3 hours. That really helped to just structure it in my brain and helped me to internalize some of the concepts that we went through. With the course, we always had some homework to begin with. I felt like I was having flashbacks to my grad school days, but we would have articles to read or some type of exercise to do, and everything related to one another, which was helpful. So, something that you're tackling on day one is going with Laura when you're talking about how do you become your best self? What are your strengths? What are your blockers? Something that you're tackling on day one with Laura, you'll see echoes of it on day 3 when we're talking about fundraising with Robert. I don't know what other questions Zinnia has, and I'm absolutely can talk about some of the benefits that I saw through my own work with the Leadership Institute, but I'll throw it over to Taffany first so she can go ahead and talk about her first kind of thoughts of the program.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thanks, Marcy. Hello, everyone. So I'm Taffany English, director of the Civil Rights Memorial Center in Montgomery. And I want to echo everything that Marcy has said about the structure of the Institute. I really don't have anything to add to that other than there were 2 highlights of the structure is in addition to the amazing faculty that we had for the Leadership Institute, we also had guests who would come in, who had, experience in the museum field, sharing their best practices around leadership development, giving us ideas for continuing our professional development, and also additional resources on where we can plug in. So I thought that was amazing. And in addition to the homework, we also had these after the Institute, after we had a break and we finished the second part of our day, we would come back for these sessions that we would have. And they were just free flowing conversations to ask deeper questions about anything that had transpired in the 3 hours before, or did anything come up in the homework, or, or just discussing, kind of personal challenges that we were having with leadership. And the structure of it, I do want to go back to that. I think it was also just really beneficial for all of us because all 3 of the faculty had worked with museums, connections with museums and leadership. And also, with community engagement and how we are also forward facing in our communities, in the institutions and the communities that we have. So it was a great experience, and I still talk about it all the time.
Thanks, Taffany. I think, I'd like to hear just a little bit from each of you about impact. You don't have to go too deep into it, but obviously this 2-week experience brought you together with the cohort, and there's still, we'll talk a little bit about the alumni sort of development that is occurring in real time right now with this first cohort. Again, the Jekyll Island Management Institute has a very strong alumni network, and ours is just the beginning. But Marcy, maybe just a few, it's 2021 continues to be a roller coaster of a year. And I'm wondering, what aspects of the Leadership Institute you've put into practice, or what area did you really take away and then use?
Sure. So before the Institute even started, we had an exercise to do, and that required a little bit of homework, but this was an exercise that was kind of put forth by Laura, who did a lot of the information around your best self. So this exercise required each member of the Institute to think about a time that they had been their best selves, or, a couple times. And, you really had to get introspective about your, it didn't have to be work related. It could be in your personal life, but, when was the time that you felt like you were operating at your best? So you did your own kind of introspection or reflection. And then you were also asked to talk to coworkers, family members, friends who could give examples of when they thought that you were at your best self. So we were receiving kind of a lot of information, and just looking at being able to read what my friends and coworkers and peers, people I respect, had written about me, and I think was really kind of mind-blowing to me, because there are certain things that I just being able to see from their perspective was of things that I bring to the table that I didn't recognize before. That was so important. So like right off the bat, even before we're getting together for the very first time, my mind is being changed. And I think that is something so important about the Leadership Institute. It brought, just from each exercise that we did, it brought a little more clarity. Not only are we improving our skills of communication, fundraising, strategic planning, but you're also learning so much about yourself. I felt like I was like a crash course of like Marcy 101, and I was learning, but it was, and that kind of led to this really increased confidence that I had in the skills, the things that I bring to the table in my job, in my personal life. What am I offering to relationships? And also, what am I looking for in like work relationships and personal relationships? I think is so important. You definitely, as we're doing some of the readings, we talked about adaptive leadership, which I didn't know about. That was a new concept. It really makes you realize like what makes a good leader, what makes a good manager. I mean, we've all had good managers, we've all had bad managers, and being able to pick up on what are those skills that the good managers are using, what are the skills that, or what are the things that the weaknesses that those bad managers have, help you realize the mind traps, the pitfalls that you can avoid, or the good behavior to model. So I think that it makes me really reflect on, what others are doing. And, it really, with how we were all working together, I think a lot more about working horizontally. So if you are in a position in your job where you can't actually move up right now, how can you better support your colleagues? How can you better work with peers to present a stronger front for change, essentially? So those are just a couple of things, like right off the bat. I could talk about this forever, but I'll go, Taffany, I want to hear what you learned from it.
Like you, Marcy, the exercise reflecting on your best self was really, really eye-opening for me. I had never done that before. Of course, I've done the DISC, I've done the strength finders, and it was really different from that. in addition to kind of what I learned to like use for myself throughout that, and just seeing how it connected to a lot of different areas. And it also helped me to think about my leadership and connection to the larger organization, and also my focus on my staff, right? And assisting my staff in focusing more on their strengths as opposed to their weaknesses and what we can do as a team. And I think the other thing that really helped me, and I said this at one point because I have it in my journal, but there was one point, I think we were midway through the Institute, and we were diving deeper into our own personal challenges and connecting it to why we were having these challenges. And so a lot of the frustration that I had around feeling like it was the organization that was stagnant, or the community's not receptive, or I can't get my staff to move, all that related back to the leadership model that I was like utilizing in my leadership. Because again, we learn leadership, and we oftentimes learn it from watching other people, even when it's not necessarily the best way, and you're like internally thinking there has to be a different way, right? And then just putting myself back in that place of thinking about, you know, the pros and cons of leaders that I've had, you know, what made them really well, made them good, what were some of the not so good things, and not focusing on the person, right? And understanding that they also learned a model. So I actually did a dump, right, from that, and thinking about how I wanted to move forward. And then the other thing was also, again, going back to some of the resources, and Marcia's on here, and I want to say, like, her book, The Power of Partnership, I have used that so much because the museum that I work for, I'm in Montgomery, it's focused on civil rights. And there are a lot of other civil rights entities here, but we don't partner like we should. And so that book was really helpful in that. And then the ways in which I engage with our executive team. What I learned from that Leadership Institute really gave me confidence and empowered me to just be more vocal about the needs of the museum and the community. And it also helps to solidify the shift that they were trying to go, but adding my skill set to that mix. So, and again, I'm like Marcy, I could talk about this forever. It was just a great experience, and I just can't, you know, thank SEMC enough for doing it.
Thanks, Taffany. As I'm looking at this picture, it reminds me of, I mean, the structure, even though it was virtual, you can't necessarily replicate how it was supposed to go with in person, but we did do a lot of small group discussions, or the cohort did, over the 2 weeks. And so they would go into breakout rooms. And I think that was very impactful in terms of developing relationships, and we would sort them around every single time. So you were always with a different group of people. But we took this picture on the very last day of the Institute. And the funny thing is like 2 seconds earlier, everyone was very teary, because it was just kind of, you know, it was the end, and it really had been this bonding experience. And I know that the Jekyll Island Management Institute has that same type of feeling. And so again, I'll talk just a minute about moving into the future, but just Taffany and Marcy, since we have you, and then maybe Marcia, a final comment from you about your alumni cohort, and about the value of that, and what we've been doing over this last year to begin to structure that. I don't know who wants to take that.
I'll jump in really quick. So after the Institute ended, the 2 weeks, we met monthly for these learning happy hours, and it was after work. And you know, the initial ones were just talking about how we were doing, where we are, what were we still, you know, learning from the Institute, what were we applying. And then we all started facilitating. We took a lead in facilitating a group topic. And so it was great to have Xenia there. Marcia dropped in on a few, and it was great to have faculty from the Leadership Institute to continue engaging with us throughout the year. And in addition to that, myself and Cassandra, she's on the Zoom call. She just talked about how cute we were on our virtual picture. But both of us actually applied for a PhD program, Antioch University, which also is kind of an influence there. And so we're going through that process together as well. And so across the board, just reaching out across the aisle with the cohort has been great. We've shared ideas on education and outreach. We've shared ideas on, just again, professional development and leadership skills. So Marcy, I'll hand it over to you if you have anything to add.
I mean, I think you basically covered it. It is so, the monthly happy hours that we do are just, I don't know if I would have had met Taffany or met Adam or met Kayla, because we're all spread all across the region, and being able to come together with these incredible folks who, we're in different fields, some registrars, some educators, we're all over the place. It was really great to just form these connections, because we can, even if we're not doing the same type of job, we're all supporting one another, which is so important. And, even though we weren't able to be in person, I think that being able to have this group that can just meet virtually, I got so excited because I got to see Kayla in person the other day and, give her a hug. And it was finally, face to face, was so nice. That this cohort is really special. And I think we are going to continue to figure out how we can support each other in the future, what that model looks like. And I'll be Taffany's biggest cheerleader. I'll be Cassandra's biggest cheerleader. I'm so excited to see how this Antioch program works out for the two of them.
Yeah, and I guess all I just want to say is that we were talking about sort of blurred boundaries, so the virtual and on-site, and I think the boundaries between faculty and the cohort members also were very blurry. We were learning as we go. We felt like we were building the plane and flying it at the same time. So the interests, the contributions, the participation of each of the members of the cohort was incredibly important to creating a positive experience, and a memorable one. I won't forget it. And I think, a key element, and I haven't participated in Jimmy, but from what I hear George and Heather say, I think this is another key element of it, is the development of trust, the openness, the ability to be candid, even about things that aren't going so well. And I think that's part of what makes these programs highly successful and memorable and creates those bonds. So for me, it's just a complete privilege to have been part of this.
Thank you, Marcia. So we'll wrap this part up in just a minute, and then if there's questions from anybody, we're happy to answer it. But as I mentioned, the SEMC Leadership Institute, it's going to run April 25th to 29th, 2022. The application is actually live. I just haven't promoted it yet because we've been working on the conference. But there is, I'll put a link in the chat in a moment. If you go to the SEMC website, it's under programs. You can read a little bit more about what we've talked about. The bios of all the faculty are there. But this is the venue where it will be. It's called the Duke Mansion. It's basically a sort of bed and breakfast. This actually used to be a private home, but now it's run as sort of a hotel and event center. Really beautiful grounds. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a picture of the back, but the cohort meeting space is actually down there if you're looking at the picture to the right. So I mean, it's a very nice venue to be together, as a smaller group, to be on the grounds, to have social time as well, time for reflection in a quiet space. It's surrounded by these rose gardens, and it's like a very mini Biltmore. If you've ever been there, I was very impressed with the whole thing. But the curriculum may be tweaked somewhat. Again, we need to gather again as administrator and faculty and look at the topics, but it's basically the same, that whole idea of looking in, looking around, looking forward. But this time it will be in person. Now, as I mentioned, with I don't foresee it as being you go into a classroom at 8 a.m. and you come out at 5. That's not the way that we're going to structure this program. There will be time built in for breaks and these reflection exercises and social time. And it's also trying to get in line with all of the instructors' schedules. But there's also now this opportunity, Taffany and Marcy were talking about the guest speakers and this whole idea, and I think we're looking at this for Jekyll Island Management Institute too, is being able to bring in other speakers, on Zoom to just add to a topic, and that offers us a lot of flexibility. So as I said, this is it is a selection process. The cohort, this program was designed for a cohort of 16. The first cohort was a little bit less just because of, situational. But so it is an application process. It does require letters of recommendation, and some real thought about why you want this experience and how it's going to be beneficial to you. There's a selection committee made up of SEMC Council and stakeholders of this program that will be reviewing applications. But so I hope I don't remember, the deadline to apply is probably late December. We might bump it back a little bit, but you have time to think about it. And all of us are here to answer questions about what the experience will be like. If you want to know more about potential expenses, that's all something that I'm going to be more than ready to talk about as soon as we're on the other side of this conference. See in the chat, what's said on the island stays on the island. Yeah, I think that's, again, these are these experiences where you're in it together with the people that you're going to go through this experience with. So I guess at this point, if anybody has questions for us, and people can feel free to email me. Oh, thank you, Marcy, for putting your email in there. Sorry, my mind is already starting to think about what's going on next at the conference. Heather Marie, George, any final thoughts from you guys about Jimmy, about the sort of just anything?
No, well, I'll just say we're excited about the next step. And I think that I think having this next year to kind of plan and get ready for it. So Zinnia, thank you and SEMC for the leadership. And, it's the 20-year run has been great. There's been some wonderful people associated with it. And so I think this next phase is exciting. And it's really, it's such a needed program. I mean, that's what's so important. And both of these programs are different. And that's what people need to understand. You kind of just plug into where you think it's best for you, and you can do both over courses of years. Why not? And so I'm excited about that aspect.
And just following up on that, we're actually at the moment we're staggering them in terms of one program a year. And that's just the way it is for the next 2 years. I don't know going forward if SEMC can build its internal capacity to be able to run both of these programs in the same year, then we'll move towards that model. But for right now, like, as I said, as we need to finish out the Jimmy evaluation and get ready for 2023. So we'll see how that works out in that first year. So thank you, George, very much. Yeah, thank you all for offering to continue to be ambassadors for these programs. I mean, the Jimmy alumni are strong, and I know they had a great luncheon here the other day. They enjoy getting together at the annual meeting, and I'm looking forward to that same type of structure happening with the leadership cohort. So that being said, I hope that you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about these programs and have a better understanding of the differences and where we are with each, and what might be a good fit for you. But as everybody, I echo all of the other speakers, you can reach out to me at any time to ask questions. As I said, I'll give more specifics about anticipated costs and what meals are included, and just, you know, the detailed things to think about if you're going to take a week away from work to do this kind of experience. Thank you all.
So Zinnia, I shared the URL in the chat, so you don't have to worry about that. The application deadline is November 12th.
I think I'm gonna actually, I'll change that. That's too close.
Yeah.
that was like
that's what it says currently. So
okay.
That's what I shared. If there's an extension, yay! I just want to reiterate to everybody too that there are endowments for, again, the Pete LaPaglia Scholarship Fund, the Martha Battle Jackson Fund, and then there's also donation opportunities to the Leadership Institute, because SEMC is still working on the sustainability for both of these programs. So I feel like as president, I have to plug that. And just reiterate that. And if you, again, as people were saying, if you have any questions about like which program is best for you or which route you should go with first, like feel free to reach out to any of the SEMC council members and any of the faculty for both of the programs and any of the alumni for both of the programs, because they can probably help you figure out which program might be best for you after having a deep conversation about what it is, where you're at in your career, where you're looking to go, and what you're trying to develop in yourself immediately. And don't be afraid to approach any of us. I personally feel like SEMC is family, and it doesn't matter what our job titles are. We're here to talk to each other and network with each other and support each other. So if you're new to SEMC in the organization, again, don't hesitate to talk to anybody and get answers to your questions, because we're a really friendly group of people.
We're the friendliest museum conference around.
That's right.
It's our claim to fame. And Wes, our awesome technician, just reminded me that you can save the chat. So if you want to just save the chat and get everybody's emails and have it downloaded on your computer, it's there too. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate all of you who have come and given your time today to speak and to talk about these programs, and for your participation as instructors and as participants. It's really important, and I am excited for both of these programs and the future that they have. So stay tuned. As soon as the dust settles a little bit, I will start really promoting the Leadership Institute in terms of the application process, and we'll get going with that. And we will get back to finishing